Good morning. Thank you all for joining me here today. Going into the weekend, I wanted to provide an update on the hot spot that we have in the state of South Dakota down at Smithfield Foods in Sioux Falls. There are things that we know are true with the situation that we're dealing with today in our state. We know for a fact that the science has told us that we cannot stop this virus. We also know that we can take action to slow it down. Our role is in managing that spread, to protect our people, and to manage the healthcare resources that we have and take care of the communities that are involved. At Smithfield, because it is a hotspot, we're deploying our resources there. We're testing people there more at a higher rate. We're monitoring everyone who is going in and out of that facility, and we're working to isolate those folks who are sick or may have been exposed to the virus and pull them out of the facility and isolate them. As of this morning, we have 190 positive cases at the Smithfield facility that are tied to that facility and the work that is done there. And we have 6 of them that we believe at some point have had to require some health care or hospitalization throughout the process. In a minute, I'm going to let Dr. Clayton talk about some of the efforts that are taking place on the ground there. But the second component of this situation is what is happening outside of the facility. What's happening outside of the workplace when these folks go home. We're dealing with a very diverse workforce there. We're working with community leaders, and we're specifically working to see what we can do to make sure social distancing is happening outside of the workplace. The Department of Health is working with language specialists to ensure that we're communicating with all these individuals and their families to make sure that they understand the importance of the CDC guidance and what they can do to make sure everyone stays healthy through this situation. Lastly, today, at my direction, the Secretary of Health is going to declare a public health emergency in Minnehaha County. This is an additional enforcement tool that we're going to utilize and make sure that we have all the tools available should we need them in the future. This is a proactive step that we're using to make sure that the authorities are in place should the time arise in the future that we would need to use them. Again, I want to remind everybody that you can help us. You can help us in several different ways. First of all, by following our guidance and my executive order closely. Stay home. I know it is a holiday weekend, but I'm asking you to social distance, to stay away from individuals more than 6 feet, to be in your home and making sure you're washing your hands and practicing good hygiene. I also want to ask you all to download and consider downloading the Care19 app. This is an app that was developed. We're the second state in the nation to utilize it, and it's a tool that you can have to track where you've gone, who you've interacted with, that we can use for our tracing mechanisms that we have to employ when someone tests positive. When someone tests positive in the state of South Dakota, we have an investigative team that immediately works with them to determine where they might have been while they were contagious and who they might have exposed to the virus. If you will download this app and sign up for it, it would be very helpful in doing that, speed up that process, and allow us to be more proactive in making sure we're isolating individuals who may be at risk or may be testing positive. As of today, one of the high points that we have so far in the state of South Dakota is while we're focused on issues and hot spots in different parts of our communities, that overall our state is still in a good position. And remember, when I talked to you about social distancing and my executive order, the entire goal was to make sure that we are keeping people out of the hospital. I talked to you about the fact that because we put those measures in place, we have cut our need for hospital beds, ICU beds, ventilators in half. That has worked. So far in this country, we have the lowest hospitalization rate of any state that is keeping track of that. We're 46th in the nation, and 46 are reporting their hospitalization rates. We are the lowest, and that means that the mitigation efforts that we have thus far have been effective, and our goal is to make sure we don't overwhelm our healthcare systems. We keep people out of the hospital, slow down the spread, and make sure that we're being responsive to the needs of our families here. With that, I will open it up to questions, and I do have with me as well Kim Malzum-Risden, who is the Department of Health Secretary, and Josh Clayton, who is our state epidemiologist. They're here to take your questions and speak about the virus, the science behind it, and the facts on the ground that the Department of Health is dealing with as well. So with that, let's go to questions.
I wanted to confirm that those 190 cases were employees And how many people could have been infected as a result of that, whether it's family or friends or just people these employees have come in contact with?
Yeah. So, what we know is that we do have 190 individuals that are part of our investigation associated with Smithfield. The focus here is that we are looking at all of the individuals that they came into close contact with. That is, just as a generality, about 10 individuals per case. And so it does take, us time to identify those individuals to provide that notification. And we have ramped up efforts with our case identified, our staff that are doing the case investigations, as well as those that are conducting the contact investigations. And so, we are continuing to monitor the situation and make sure that we have appropriate resources to both identify cases as well as to follow up with anybody who may have been exposed.
Any questions on the phone?
Governor, this is Stephen Rhodes from the AP.
Go ahead, Stephen.
So previously you had said that a public health emergency would apply more to an individual case-by-case basis. With this declaration in Minnehaha County, I'm wondering what's the change there?
Nope, this is exactly what I've told you for weeks is how it would apply. What I'm doing today is appropriate for the situation we're in. This will set forth the parameters in which we could use authorities to incorporate judicial action against someone that may not comply with quarantine efforts. So it's something that I work in the state of South Dakota puts into place with the Secretary of the Department of Health to make sure that we have those authorities available when we need them. So I think I'll let the Secretary of Health talk specifically about her role in this and how the state implements it, but this is exactly how it's supposed to be utilized and what I've been telling you for weeks on how we would use it when the time was appropriate.
Thank you, Governor. This is Kim Malsom-Reisen with the Department of Health. And so the action today is a preventative step in the event that we have individuals who need to be quarantined, who are not cooperating with that effort. And so the next step there would be the issuance of a public health intervention order that's outlined in statute. If a person does not comply with that order, then we would seek judicial enforcement, as the governor just indicated. The public health emergency gives us the ability to work with the judicial branch to make sure people are staying safe and that they're not infecting other people.
Are you having problems with people complying as of right now?
The question was around people complying right now. So far, with all of the COVID cases that we've had in the state, we've only had to issue one public health intervention order. It is not related to the cases in Minnehaha County.
The reason for doing it for Minnehaha County today is because we've reached a threshold of doubling our positive cases in the last 3 days, which indicates we have more people involved, more contacts involved, which means these tools may be necessary in the coming days, is why we want to be proactive in doing this today, so it was in place to be used if necessary.
This is Trevor Mitchell with the Argus Leader.
Yes, Trevor.
Can the health secretary go into a little bit about what a public health intervention is?
Sure. So a public health intervention order is a directive from me as the Secretary of Health about what a person is supposed to do to contain an infectious disease. Again, there is established statutes in this area, so it's outlined in law in terms of the instances when this can be used. And so it basically outlines to the individual person what they need to do to stay safe and to keep others safe. So it's personalized and it's provided to people on an individual basis. Thankfully, most people, as we work with them, don't have the need for a public intervention order, and that's been very much the case throughout time as we work with these situations in our state.
And is that can you speak about where that was located in any more specificity?
I cannot give a lot of details. We have issued a public health intervention order once so far in the COVID response, and that involved an individual in Lyman County.
Question for
This
Dr.
is Michael
Clayton,
from
if I
Kello.
could.
We have a question for Dr. Clayton in the room, and then we will go to the question on the phone.
Doctor, a lot of people have contacted our media outlets asking about warm weather and if that will have an impact on shortening the virus. If we get 3 days of 85-degree weather is a common one you see on social media. Could you just address that, please?
Certainly. I'll preface it by saying there's a lot we still do not know about this virus and about how, it may continue to spread. As we see with influenza and a lot of other respiratory viruses, we do see some of that decrease typically over the summer months. With COVID-19 being a novel virus, we don't know exactly how it will act, whether we will see a little decrease, over the summer months. One of the main differences between COVID-19 and what we do see with our other viruses, influenza, and other common respiratory viruses, is that it's the first time that we have seen it in the human population. So, we are, looking to see signs that, it is decreasing transmission potential, looking at, things that do play a role in overall transmission. So things related to temperature, the humidity, and things like that that are known with other respiratory viruses to potentially impact negatively the opportunity of the virus to continue to spread.
There was a question on the phone.
Yes, thank you, Governor. This is Michael from Kello. I have two questions here. The first is a point of clarification. On the 190 cases, are they connected, including family or just employees? I think my phone may have cut out, or I might not have heard the complete answer on that.
So those 190 cases are primarily employees of Smithfield. It's important to note that this is not just a single employer concern. We've known and we've made sure that we've been very transparent with the continued transmission of COVID-19 within our communities. It is unfortunate that we have seen COVID-19 impact negatively one of our local businesses like this, but we're really focused on trying to decrease any sort of transmission or spread of this virus, in businesses and within the community. And so just wanted to make sure that we are focusing on the overall activities are designed to reduce transmission everywhere, communities, businesses, and within the home.
So are you going, I guess on that point, how are you ensuring that these positive employees are being isolated? And then also, I'm wondering, are you going to be able to at some point release more information on the number of cases that are connected to this hotspot? So not just the workers, but the family members, and as you do your contact tracing?
So the first question about the information that we have to release, what we are focusing on is just the overall number of cases. The majority of those are focused on employees that happen to work at Smithfield. So what we do know is that we are tracking individuals that are positive within the community, COVID-19 positive. So the process for that is that our investigative staff are notified of those positive results from laboratories both in-state and out-of-state that are conducting the testing. Those individuals are notified, and this can be just a general phone call with the individual, or sometimes it does have to be through an interpreter. The information that we relay is to make sure that they understand the importance of the diagnosis that they have of COVID-19, and that we're asking them to stay at home for the duration of their illness. And the focus there is to make sure that they are not potentially transmitting the virus within the community or within their work settings. The next step is to collect information about, where they had been, who they had been in close contact with, and those individuals then are received by that individual, and then we do also make the follow-up calls to make sure that those individuals are notified. That's something that we've still been able to do. We continue to conduct, and this is part of our normal process for infectious diseases. And so we notify those individuals of their exposure and ask them to stay at home for 14 days after their last exposure. So again, this is very standard, protocol for conducting our investigations.
Thank you. I just have I may have phrased it incorrectly, but like with the family, when they go back to their families, are you ensuring that it doesn't spread? Because I know in other countries that's kind of been a problem where the cases, if the person would go home, it would spread throughout the family, and if it's a multi-generational family, it could cause more cases, more problems for the healthcare system.
Yeah. So the one thing that I will say to that is there is very good guidance from the CDC that talks about what a good location to have a person isolated within their home and appropriate precautions that individuals within that household need to take so that there is no risk of transmission from the person who is positive for COVID-19 to the rest of the household members.
Thank you.
Michael, I would speak to that as well, that we have, we certainly have different areas of the state where people have different situations at home. We're going above and beyond to make sure that we're communicating with everybody about the importance of how they isolate themselves if they have been exposed to the virus. We'll do the same with these communities as well. Our Department of Health has been very proactive in reaching out to them. We're also working with community leaders there to make sure that they know, and we have a unified communication tool with these individuals and doing all that we can to help them isolate if they think that they have been exposed to the virus. So that's not something that we can ever say we've done enough on. We're going to continue to be proactive and work with that. And in this situation, we're working with interpreters to make sure the communication is clear and concise and that people know what the guidance is and how we can help them at home to make sure that they're making great decisions going forward.
Thank you, Governor.
There was another question on the phone line.
Yeah, this is Trevor Mitchell with the Argus Leader. A day or two ago, you spoke about there being one or two potential hotspots in the state. Are there other employers who are seeing these hotspots? Can you identify where some of these hotspots might be?
I would say that overall, when you look at our state, you can see from what we report to you on a daily basis where we have positive cases, where we have people that have recovered, that we have specific areas that we're looking at. But right now, I would say the number one concern is in the Sioux Falls area because of the population density. We've seen increasing positive cases there, specifically tied to this facility right now. But we also know that none of this is unexpected, that we have been preparing for this for weeks. We know that this virus will spread throughout our state, and we'll continue to focus on each area and make sure we're getting people the care that will help them get through this. It's encouraging to me that everybody's working in unity to deal with the situation in our state, and we'll continue to do that. But we've had encouraging news. If I think you remember, not too long ago, we were dealing with a situation in Beadle County. That situation has dramatically improved. They may see an increase in positives in the coming days. We don't know. We do know this virus spreads and that we can't necessarily predict what will happen in the next week or two specifically, but I will tell you that from the projections we were looking at a month ago, we are in a better position than we thought we would be at this point. At this point, I thought we would have, based on modeling, based on projections, based on what we were seeing in other states, I thought we would have many more positive cases and many more counties that were being dramatically impacted at this point. So the work that the people of South Dakota have been doing is working. I want to encourage you all to know that we are using the facts and the data and the science we have available to us to make decisions each and every day. And the decisions that you are making at home and in your daily life and for your employees and that the employers are making has been incredibly important to make sure we're getting through this situation and we'll come out the other side together.
Are there any other specific hotspots in Sioux Falls that you can identify?
Not specifically that we can identify today.
Governor, this is Stephen Gross from the AP.
Yep.
So with the number of cases tied to Smithfield doubling since Wednesday and the public health emergency, is a 3-day shutdown enough to curb the spread where you want it to be?
We think it's appropriate to make sure that they put in the mitigation measures that I have discussed with Ken over the last 36 hours. They're going to put in some more protective measures for their employees to give us time to make sure that they go back and do their cleaning mechanisms that they've been doing for quite some time as well, and to give the employees a 3-day pause to make sure that they're prepared and ready and willing to come back and come to work and be in a situation that they're comfortable. So we obviously every day, every moment, reevaluate. We'll continue to do that in this situation, but right now I believe that was an appropriate decision. Other questions? Yep. What do you mean allegations, Bob? Bob was asking about with the allegations that have been made at Smithfield, am I considering any enforcement actions?
Right. By workers' allegations regarding.
Well, what would be helpful, Bob, and I'll be real candid with you. I think we all read the news stories last night, watched our TV stations, watched some stories that have come out. I think that the concerns of those workers needs to be looked at and considered by everybody. And I encourage Smithfield to do that as well. But I also know that when you don't hear all the facts of a situation and when the media doesn't cover all the facts of a situation, you're doing a disservice to the public. That you need to get the whole story, get both sides of the story, do the investigative work that it takes to tell the truth. And I haven't seen that in every single story that's been going on in South Dakota. I think that when a story is only told a part way, or you've left out facts to make sure that it was a story that grabbed headlines, that's unfortunate. And it's not helping the situation that we have here in South Dakota. The public deserves the truth, and the truth is all the facts, and I would appreciate it if our media would remember that.
Governor?
So I think I'll take the opportunity to talk a little bit about the work that we have been doing with Smithfield directly. So we have had ongoing calls with Smithfield, both their local and corporate office. It's important to note that Smithfield has followed CDC guidance that's specifically focused on critical infrastructure that's designed to help ensure that that population that they're helping to serve in that critical infrastructure role is able to appropriately continue with their processes. The focus here is that we do take seriously the concerns that have been raised. We are working very closely with Smithfield to make sure that they have a work environment that is able to decrease any sort of potential risk of spread of COVID-19. the information that Smithfield relayed around temperature and symptom screenings at the site, making sure that they do have personal protective equipment for their staff. They're looking at enhancing the barriers for individuals that are working on the line that might be in a little bit closer proximity to one another, and just the amount of communication that they are doing with the various groups within various populations within Smithfield, within their workforce. So I think it's important to note that from that perspective, there have been communications and that we're monitoring the situation, and that we do take seriously concerns that are being raised by the employees, and want to make sure that we're providing, working with Smithfield to provide appropriate work location.
Governor Noem, it's Todd Abbott, Keller Radio. I'd like to follow up on the Smithfield situation.
Sure, go ahead, Todd.
Thank you. You had mentioned that we in the media have not done our jobs to find out what's the other side. I'll just tell you the situation we ran into, and I'm guessing my colleagues in the media have had a similar situation. We've reached out to Smithfield. I mean, they sent us a release, and then we reached out to their people for additional comment and about all this, and they wouldn't talk to us. So it becomes a little bit difficult for us to follow up if the employer doesn't talk with us. What facts do you know that we should be reporting that have not been reported?
Well, thank you for letting me know that, Todd, and that's good information for me to have. We've been communicating with Smithfield. We've seen photos of what's going on inside the factory as far as mitigation measures. They've given us proof of what they have put into place and when they have put those provisions into place. They've talked over and given us direction on what their plans are and their communication with the employees, how they've isolated and sent their vulnerable population home, different protective equipment they've installed, changes they've made in their lunchroom, transportation areas. All those are facts of the situation. All those are information that have been given to us, and I certainly could be proactive on your behalf to make sure you got that as well. So I think here in South Dakota, what I love about this state is, we're just everyday regular people using common sense each day, and we like to talk to each other and have conversations. Let's do that. Let's do that and make sure the public's getting the best information we can possibly get them. We have never done this before in our lifetimes. We are in unprecedented territory. And that means that maybe we just drop our agendas and we take care of people. And that's what I'm asking. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm having really honest, frank conversations with Smithfield, but also with everybody in South Dakota, everybody that I interact with. And also I'm having an honest one today about the media. I'm going to ask you to help me get all the facts out to the public and just make sure that we're making the best decisions for South Dakota. And I appreciate you always holding people accountable. We just need to make sure that we're always telling all the facts of the situation that are available to us, and I'll help you make sure that you get that when you need it too, Todd.
And thank you, Governor. I appreciate that.
You
One
bet.
quick question. Has anyone from your office talked to the union? They were the ones that were kind of on top of this, saying that they didn't think their workers were getting everything they needed.
I have gotten documentation and letters, communications with the union. I don't know who on my staff specifically has visited with them, but I can follow up. I know the Department of Health probably has, and then I know I've had communications between my office, but I'll find out who's had real conversations for you.
Thank you, Governor. Have a nice
Todd.
Easter.
Yes, you too. Other questions?
Ben
All right.
Chase with the Huron Daily Plainsman.
Yes.
I'm just curious what follow-up there's been on the Lane Cafe situation.
I'll let the Secretary of Health speak to that situation.
So I think you're referencing a press release that we put out to inform the public that there was a potential exposure risk associated with that particular business. That's not the first time that we've had to do that, and again, we will expect to have to do that for other situations in the future. So the follow-up there is making sure that the positive person remains quarantined, remains staying safe, and not putting themselves or others at risk. The public notice was intended to help the public know who may have been in contact, so that they can take precautions, they can monitor themselves, and take appropriate action if needed.
Further questions? Okay. All right, follow up with my office if we can be helpful, and happy Good Friday today.